Hello again. A couple of days ago, I looked at a British medical school which is trying to increase its diversity by lowering the qualifications necessary to train as a doctor. I have a confession to make at this point. I've never really been sure what all this diversity business is about, nor have I understood the need for it. Now, I'm sure that it might be because I'm an ageing racist blinkered by my white privilege. But the fact remains, I have only the haziest idea what we're talking about when we say diversity in the modern sense of the word. It's a bit like those words which you encounter sometimes in newspapers and books. You've seen them before. You've got some vague recollection of their meaning, but you don't really understand what they mean. You've never bothered to look them up in the dictionary. Words like pusillanimous or perspicuous. That's how I've been with diversity. I rather assume it means more black people and foreigners in various fields. But why this should be a good or desirable aim has never really been clear to me. By great good fortune, this week's edition of New Scientist, which is a magazine to which I subscribe, has a piece which promises to clear up the matter once and for all. It's by a black woman, an MP called Chai Onwurah, who is apparently Shadow Minister for Digital Science and Technology. Her article is headed, "Diversity is not an optional add-on, it is an economic imperative." Well, now you see this must be the very thing. It's written by a black female scientist who is now a politician. This should make plain even to an old fossil like me just precisely why 50% of scientists ought to be women and that there should be more black people in laboratories. I'll go through this piece and we can see together what to make of it. She begins by saying that as an engineer, I was so often the only black person in the room, the only woman in the room, the only working class person in the room, and the only northerner in the room. For those who have not experienced being in my position, I think it can be hard to understand just how lonely and tiring being a minority can be. Okay, all this means simply is that some women, black people and working class people don't like the way that society is currently constituted and that they can sometimes feel out of place. It tells us nothing about the need for any change, let alone that such change is imperative. I don't much care for the way things are run either, but I can't expect that societies will be revolutionised just because I feel a bit out of place sometimes, which incidentally happens increasingly. She goes on to say that the coronavirus has shown us that science plays a vital part in all our lives, and we need the people who work and engage in science to be representative of the whole of society. Well, this is baffling. I'm not sure where she gets the... okay. I don't see how the coronavirus has shown us that we need scientists to be more representative of a society as a whole. It doesn't seem to follow logically. There we are. Then we see the following. Having science as something that happens over there in ivory towers among a narrow demographic prevents us from delivering on science's promise to make the world work better for everyone. So we need to be very clear that diversity is not an optional add-on, it is an economic imperative. I simply can't make any sense of this. I'm not sure where she gets the idea that what she calls science's promise is to make the world work better for everyone. This is a new idea to me. Charles Darwin, of course, was a brilliant and famous scientist who revealed a lot about the world, But I don't think that formulating and writing about the theory of evolution has made the world work better for everyone. Perhaps that makes him less of a scientist. And what about the most famous scientist of them all, Albert Einstein? Was his work on relativity designed to make the world work better for everyone? Does that mean he failed as a scientist because he didn't make the world work better? More research needed about this claim, I fancy. I'm also not sure how limiting science to what is described here as a narrow demographic, she means white men, of course, that's what that's code for. I'm not sure how that's not had a beneficial effect. Think about things like televisions, computers, electric lights, aeroplanes, the internet, all the things that would make our lives so much better. These were all produced by this narrow demographic. What reason do we have that things would have been better if there had been more black people and women in the laboratories producing things like this? We come now to a paragraph which I literally cannot understand at all. Let me quote it to you. Innovation is what happens when people with different ideas from different disciplines and backgrounds come together to create or discover something new and valuable. We are losing out on our scientific and therefore economic potential by limiting those who access it. Well, what is it in this paragraph that we are limiting access to? Does she mean innovation? Are we limiting access to innovation? That doesn't really sound so it makes any sense. Let me read it again, and perhaps viewers can comment here and tell me what the it is about which she is talking. Innovation is what happens when people with different ideas from different disciplines and backgrounds come together to create or discover something new and valuable. We are losing out on our scientific and therefore economic potential by limiting those who access it. So, are we limiting those who access innovation? And if so, what does that actually mean? I'll be interested if anyone commenting can explain that to me. She goes on to say, we are also driving inequality. STEM jobs pay better and will drive job creation over the next few years as we build back from the pandemic and face climate change and the fourth industrial revolution. And they are such rewarding and fulfilling careers. It is essential that they are open to everyone and benefit from the talents of everyone. Well, okay. First, she hasn't demonstrated that these careers are not open to everyone, although that's a plain implication. But why is it essential that they should be? It is essential that they are open to everyone. I mean, it may of course be desirable that they're open to everyone, but then we must ask, desirable to whom? Perhaps it is just and virtuous that they are open to everyone. But essential? We're not told why it should be essential. And does she mean this literally? Should careers in science be open to somebody who's left school unable to read and write? Should a career in science be open to someone with an IQ of 60, say? What does she really mean by everyone? Here's a person who is black, a woman, working class, a scientist, and also a politician. You might think her uniquely suited to explain why diversity in science and technology is a wise and desirable aim, and yet she's wholly unable to do so. This is a bit worrying to me. It makes me suspect that for all the talk here of diversity being an economic imperative, there's really no evidence in support of the idea. It looks to me as though this is an ideological drive rather than something devised for the benefit of either science itself or even ordinary people.